hell with this pick. Guys, this is a major move for the Fever defensively. I'm telling you right now, they keeping her. They ain't cutting her. She's staying. She is possibly finna replace Kelsey Mitchell, I feel like, when she gone. Guys, get down in the comment section. Let me know y'all thoughts about this because I told you a week ago. 2 to 3 roster spots left that we need to fill. The WNBA draft is today, so I'm possibly going to think that we might not sign anybody else until after this draft. But
the Indiana Fever have officially selected Raven Johnson with the 10th overall pick in the WNBA draft, reuniting her with former South Carolina teammate Aaliyah Boston. The pick carries some notable context. During the 2023 NCAA championship game between Iowa and South Carolina, Caitlin Clark was held to just 7 points in one contest, with Johnson serving as the primary defender on her. That defensive ability is central to the reasoning behind this selection. The argument for Johnson is not built around scoring numbers, which averaged around 10 points per game during her college career, but rather around her capacity to guard elite perimeter players and disrupt opposing offenses.
We're going to think that we might not sign anybody else until after this draft, but I could be wrong. I very much could be wrong with this, but the draft is set to take place today. Now, what stands out in the news today is bam. Let me pull this up for you real quick so we can get right to the sauce, the meat and the potatoes, and that is these 2 signings right here. So, boom. Welcome to Indiana, baby. We have Megan McConnell and Kenaya Traylor to the...
From a defensive standpoint, this is viewed as a significant addition. The expectation within the organization is that Johnson will make the final roster rather than being released before the season begins. Some speculation points to her eventually taking over minutes currently belonging to Kelsey Mitchell as the roster continues to take shape. Separately, the Fever announced 2 new training camp signings on April 13th, guards Kaya Traylor and Megan McConnell. Both players bring local connections to the state of Indiana.
The training camp squad. So the Indiana Fever has signed 2 new players to this training camp squad. Now, we remember they did this last year. They signed some players to the training camp squad, and I believe one of those players, I can't remember off the top of my head, man. I really just, God, please, guys, forgive me for that, who the players are. But we're going to jump right into this. Let's head on over to the Indiana Fever website. So Indiana Fever adds 2 with local ties to
Traylor, a native of Martinsville, Indiana, was selected 23rd overall in the 2023 WNBA draft by the Chicago Sky and has since accumulated professional experience with the Minnesota Lynx as well as clubs in France, Turkey, and Israel. Her collegiate path began at Purdue, where she recorded 221 assists across her first 2 seasons, placing her among just 6 players in program history to reach 100 assists in each of their first 2 years. She later transferred to Virginia Tech, where she posted double-digit scoring averages in both of her final college seasons and contributed to the program's first ever Final Four appearance. Most recently, she competed in Athletes Unlimited, averaging 8 points and 2.5 assists per game while shooting 44.2% from the field. McConnell arrives, having earned the 2025 Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year award, along with 2 consecutive All-Atlantic 10 first-team selections.
To training camp. So it seemed like we're seeing a repetitive thing here. They're signing people that has some familiarity or some common connection with Indiana, the city, and the state. But let's dive into this because it's my first time reading about this, y'all. So we finna learn about this together. So it's being reported that on April the 13th, the Indiana Fever have signed guards Kenaya Traylor and Megan McConnell to training camp contract.
She finished her college career ranked first in program history in both assists and triple-doubles. Her brother TJ McConnell is a current member of the Indiana Pacers, giving the family a direct existing connection to the Indianapolis sports market. McConnell made her WNBA debut on June 3rd before her rookie season was cut short by injury after just 13 minutes of play. She spent the subsequent period playing overseas in Australia, where she averaged 11 points, 3 assists, and 6.2 rebounds per game. Traylor wore number 4 and McConnell wore number 16 during their respective careers.
Contracts to the team. Now, they announced this today, right? Now, a native of Martinsville, Indiana, Traylor joins the Fever, having previously spent time with Minnesota, as well as international teams in France, Turkey, and Israel. Now, she was drafted number 23 overall in the 2023 WNBA draft by the Chicago Sky. Now, Traylor began her collegiate career at Purdue.
The thinking behind signings of this type draws comparisons to how the Fever previously brought in Ari McDonald, a player who entered under similar low-profile circumstances and delivered strong production at a minimal cost. Identifying overlooked players willing to prove themselves in a new environment has been a method teams use to extract above-average value from limited roster spots. In other roster news, Natasha Howard will not be returning to Indiana. She departed as a free agent, with Minnesota reportedly absorbing the contract. Her exit leaves open roster space. The Fever are expected to continue filling in the days ahead.
Her collegiate career at Purdue, where she totaled 221 assists over the first 2 years. Only the sixth player in school history to total 100 assists. In their first 2 seasons, after 3 seasons with the Boilermakers, Traylor transferred to Virginia Tech, where she averaged double-digit scoring in her 2 final collegiate years and helped lead the Hawkeyes to their first ever Final Four appearance. So that is Traylor.
The Fever selected a player who put up 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game across her college career. On its own, taking Raven Johnson at pick 10 is not completely indefensible. Taken in isolation, there is a world where that move makes some sense, but nothing about this situation exists in isolation.
So it looked like she is an Indiana native, and she's from the city and state of Indianapolis. Then it goes on to say, earlier this year, Traylor participated in Athletes Unlimited, where she averaged 8 points, 2.5 assists per game, while scoring 44.2 points from the field, which is pretty good, solid numbers, bro. I can't even lie. Now, McConnell played collegiate career. I'm not even finna do it.
The Indiana Fever reportedly spent somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 on Ty Harris, a guard who fills the exact same role as Raven Johnson. And both of those players occupy the exact same spot on the floor as Caitlin Clark, the best player on the roster. So the Fever now have 3 players competing for essentially one position, with serious money already committed to one of them. What makes this pattern particularly strange is that a lot of the roster construction over the past year or two has seemed oriented toward building a team that operates without Caitlin Clark on the court.
McConnell played collegiate career. I'm not even finna do it. Where she was the 2025 Atlantic Defensive Player of the Year, a 2-time All-Atlantic 10 first-team honorees in 24 and 25, and she was named the Atlantic 10 All-Defensive Team Player twice. She ended her career leading the program all-time in steals for 370 and 666 and triple-doubles for. Now, her brother TJ plays for the Indiana.
Move after move appears aimed at answering the question of how the Fever survive when their star is off the floor or unavailable. That line of thinking shows up again here. The Justine Penix selection in the second round is reasonable enough. That pick holds up.
As both of which play the exact same position as Caitlin Clark, their best player on their team. I've said this, and I actually mean this when I say this. It feels to me like the Indiana Fever are making every single move based on winning without Caitlin Clark. We said it last year as well. Like, there are an awful lot of moves that the Fever...
But there were other options at pick 10 that made more sense given the roster's actual needs. Seattle had pick 16, and there were paths to trading down and landing Flau J. Johnson if the front office had pursued it. Gianna Nickens was available as a shooter. Nickel Cloma was arguably the strongest player, still on the board at that point.
The moves that the Fever are making that seem to be how our team can function when Caitlin Clark isn't on the floor. And what if Caitlin Clark gets injured? What type of players do we need if Caitlin Clark gets injured to win? Like, it just reminds me of that. Because I'm like, I don't mind a Justine Pissot pick. I really don't mind that one. But I'm like, you could have found a way, especially
Any of those selections would have addressed a clear gap. Instead, the organization apparently believed Raven Johnson was a legitimate top 5 prospect. That belief tells the whole story. When a front office genuinely thinks a one-dimensional defensive player with limited scoring ability deserves a top 5 grade, something is fundamentally broken in the evaluation process.
you could have found a way, especially if anyone was trying to trade it for Flaugier, found a way to trade with Seattle, to give Seattle that number 10 pick, trade in to that number 16 pick and get Flaugier. You could have taken Gianna Neepkins as a shooter. You could have taken the best player available at that time in Nell Angloma. But this organization was fully convinced that they're shocked.
It is not about disrespecting Johnson as a player. She can be a serviceable role player at the professional level. The problem is the front office's complete misread of her value and where she stood relative to the rest of the draft class. The post-draft comments did not help either.
They're shocked. They thought Raven was someone going to go 4 or 5. They are the only organization. Is the only organization dumb enough to think Raven Johnson is a top 5 pick? I mean that. And like, I don't hate Raven Johnson. And people are like, "Oh, you're really like slandering Raven." I'm like, not really, not really. There is that's exactly it. There's a WNBA GM that thought Raven Johnson was going to be a top 5 pick. Like, that sums it up. Like, Raven Johnson cannot score.
Citing Dawn Staley as a primary reason for the selection sounds more like a character reference than a scouting report. Notably, the last South Carolina point guard the Fever drafted, the starting point guard from the 2022 National Championship team, was cut after her rookie season. The coaching staff has suggested that adding another guard helps get Caitlin Clark off the ball more frequently, but Ty Harris was signed specifically to provide that function.
That sums it up. Like, Raven Johnson cannot score. I think she's a good role player. It is the biggest I said the fact that at the front office thought she was going number 4 shows how unserious they are. They are so damn unserious. And then later on, Amber Cox is talking about it, saying, "Oh, one of the reasons why we drafted her is because she played for Dawn Staley." It's actually like point guards playing for. If you play for a point guard like Dawn Staley, you're going to be really good at basically. If you're a point guard that plays for Dawn Staley,
the team already has Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, and Clark herself in the backcourt. Stacking more undersized guards onto an already small roster does not solve anything. On the day,
if you're a point guard that plays for Dawn Staley, it's going to be a great point guard. Yeah, the last point guard that the Indiana Fever drafted from Dawn Staley was the starting point guard from the 2022 championship winning team of South Carolina in Destiny Henderson. The Indiana Fever cut her after her rookie year. The Indiana Fever have drafted a championship winning point guard from South Carolina. Like, the Fever also...
The broader roster picture raises additional concerns. The decision to give Mo Billings an $800,000 2-year deal is difficult to justify when a significant wave of power forwards will be coming off reserve contracts next offseason at far lower prices. A 1-year deal would have preserved flexibility heading into what is shaping up to be an important free agent period. Meanwhile, teams like the Atlanta Dream are upgrading through modern offensive system design and smart coaching hires.
Also, I'm just going to tell you, the Fever also drafted the last South Carolina PG to win a national championship before Raven. She got cut after her rookie season. Like, it is like this pick makes...
On paper, the Dream roster is similar to what it was when they finished well below 500 inches 2024, but they brought in a coach who fits how the current game is played. That single change has transformed the outlook for that franchise. The Fever, by contrast, appear to be building toward a slower, older style of basketball at a moment when the rest of the league is moving in the opposite direction. Whether the 2025 roster actually represents a meaningful step forward from 2024 is an open question, and the fact that it is genuinely unclear is itself a serious concern.
Like, it is like this pick makes no sense. And I don't even hate, like, if Raven Johnson went 9, I wouldn't hate it for Washington. If Raven Johnson went 11, I wouldn't hate it. But this complete misevaluation of a one-dimensional defender. Like, a complete misevaluation of a one-dimensional defender. They completely It's not about even taking Raven Johnson 10. It is about completely misevaluating her as a prospect. Because again, if you do take her 10, like, so be it.